This is a continuation of another video made earlier called Inheritance Part 1, and you probably should go watch that video first. What you're going to do in it is you're going to create a brand new project. You're going to create a parent class called person, which is going to have a public attribute first name and a public attribute last name. You're going to create a constructor that receives two parameters and then takes those parameters and assigns it to the attributes. You'll create a student class which inherits from, that's what the colon means, inherits from the base class or parent class called person. We also call student a derived class or subclass. And so it gives everything that's visible to the child class. And so we come over here and we say, what's visible? Well, that's public and that's public and that's public. So it can have all of those. And then it adds its own attribute called GPA. And then it goes and creates its own constructor. And it says, when this constructor is called to make the object for the student, go ahead and call the parent constructor and pass those two parameters that the student constructor received. And after that executes, then go ahead and do this code. And once again, remember, we have the parent class, child class, and inheritance. So we can have a base class, a parent class, which is very generic, do a whole bunch of the work for us, and then we just come in with the child class and make little changes to make it more specific. And that way, most of the work is already done for you. And you just keep making little changes to subclasses as you need them. So let's take a look at something. When we ran this program, we came over to here and we said, when we typed in the word ostud dot, we could see that first name is there and GPA is there and last name is there. And remember, it's of type student. Well, let's come back over to the person class, and instead of public, let's make that private. And we'll make last name also private. Now, what does that private scope mean? That means that they are only visible in the class person. That's the only place they can be seen. Now, the constructor is still public, so it can be seen anywhere. But look what happens when you come over to student. Student still says that's fine. Well, let's make this one private also. So now GPA is private. And come back over to program, and we're going to type ostud dot. Now I can't see any of those attributes. And why is that? Because we said the person first name and person last name are only visible in the class. And we said the student GPA is only visible in the student class. What if we made this public again? Come back over to program. ostud dot. Now GPA shows up, but notice the parent stuff still does not show up. Because if you make an attribute or a method private in the parent class, then when you create a subclass based upon the parent class, the parent doesn't give those attributes. It's almost like when my children were born, I have some bad habits. I stay up late, I eat microwave popcorn, buttered microwave popcorn, and then I add more real butter and salt to the buttered microwave popcorn because I just love that, and then I'll take my finger and lick the butter and popcorn out of the bowl, and right, not healthy to do. And so I don't want my children to have that same attribute that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that attribute. I'll make my popcorn loving Boolean attribute private, meaning that within my own class I can use that attribute everywhere. But then when I created a child class based upon me, it doesn't get that attribute. It doesn't need that attribute. So private says you stay in your class. Public says everybody's visible. So what happened if I came over to person and instead of private I say protected? That's another one we can have. Protected. Let's go see what happens now. Come back over to our program and we look at ostud dot I still don't see GPA there for some reason. And then I say, well, let's go ahead and build it. And maybe that's the problem. We just need to build it. And now that I build it, it says there's a problem. Well, what's going on? Take a look. Well, I left the period off of there. That is a problem, isn't it? And so let's just say that I did build it, which I tried. You still can't see it. So what does the word protected mean then? Protected says I can use it in a subclass. So I guess that means if I came over here, I should be able to see first name. And if I start to type, and there it is, it's visible. I could say first name equals whatever I want to type there. Well, what if I came back to person and I said, let's make that one protected and that one private. Let's see what really happens. I'll save that, come back to the child class. First name still visible. Can I get to last name? Nope, not there. So what protected says is if you make an attribute protected, it's visible in the class that it's declared, and it's visible in the child class, meaning I could use that in the child class wherever I wanted now. So why would you want to do that? Well, maybe you want to allow certain attributes or methods that you write in the parent class to be used in the child class. So you have to start asking yourself, what do I want to be visible in the parent class? What do I want to be visible in the child class? And what do I want to be visible everywhere? Another one that we have, let's say that, let's go ahead and fix the person class, and we'll say that that one is also protected. By the way, it might be wise, since those are protected, that we could write getters and setters for those methods. I could come in and say public void set first name string s first, and then I could say first name equals s first, semicolon, and there is a setter, and then I could say public string get first name with no parameters coming in. And since I said it returns a string, we actually need to say return something, and we'll return first name. And you could go and write that for the last name attribute also. Let's go take a look at student now. And do I have access to that method? I'm going to highlight that line, and we'll say set first name Mickey. And I do have access to that method there. So I can now call protected or public methods. Let's see what would happen. That's public. So let's see what would happen if I got rid of that method, came over to person, and instead of public, let's call that protected. So we're saying now that method will be visible in the class person and any classes that inherit from it. The student class inherits from it, so we should still be able to see set first name, which we can. But let's go look over in the program and see if I can see it. Let's just come to another line, and we'll type in the object name, ostu dot, and I now have access to that protected method. And so I could work with that. Let's come back to here, and we'll save that project. We still have the error on the ostud period. So the reason I could get to set first name was because it's public. Let's go see if I can get to the get first name. We come over to here and we type in ostud.get first name, and it's not there. And why is that? Because that method in the person class is of type protected. So that's only visible in the person class, in the student class, but not in any other class that's out of its genealogy family history chain. And so using protected allows us to protect attributes and methods that we don't want other classes to mess with. Let's go ahead and save that, and we'll go ahead and say ostud. Actually, in order to print that out, we'll have to change our get first name to be public, and that would now allow us access to it over here, ostud.getFirstName, which would print off the student name now. Let's go create one more class. And, well, let's try something. Let's go to student, and on the student class, let's change the word in front of public to be the word sealed. So now we say it's a sealed public class student. What does the word sealed mean? Let's try to create a brand new class. Right mouse click on Inherit Me, Add Class, and let's just call it stuff.cs. And what we want to do on stuff, we'll make it public, and we want to say colon, and now try to inherit from student. So in other words, we're going to say the student class inherits from person and stuff inherits from student. Well, for some reason, there's an error that says you cannot create a subclass based upon student. You cannot derive a class based upon student. And the reason is because we said student was sealed. And if you put the word sealed in front of a class, then that says you can't inherit from that class. You can't make another class based upon that class. Now, why would you want to do that? It's a way that you can specify to end users, software developers using your classes, that you do not want them creating a subclass based upon your class. So just another word that allows you to control who gets to do what. Let's go ahead and come over to stuff, right mouse click, we'll click delete, and that allows you now to create a base class called person with public attributes and protected attributes and public methods and constructors. And it allows us to create a child class student based upon person. And so now software developers can start making really good base classes, and then you can share them with other coworkers, friends, whoever, and then you can actually start making a subclass based upon the parent class, make the minimal changes you want, and most of the work is done for you. And that's how inheritance works, with protected, meaning it's visible in the class and subclasses, private, only visible in the class, and public, visible everywhere.